Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. In this episode, we chat with writer-director John Farrelly, the man behind the first Irish-language horror film, An Taibhse. Thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me on.
You have been making films, and I think this is just such an inspiring film and what you achieved. But I was wondering if you could talk to us about your film journey. I know you won an award when you were 17 with your short, The Choice. I was just wondering if you could tell me a little bit about like your inspiration up to that point and then what it's been like since making films.
Yeah, no, it's been a pretty crazy journey. I really loved books whenever I was younger and art. So I would make my own picture books like comics really young, maybe around 5 or 6. Every week I just be writing away, making them. They're all like silly little cartoon things, stickman, but I used to do that. And then I discovered MS Paint and then I started drawing on that. And then I realized if I like a flip book, I can put the pictures together. It turns into like an animation, like a moving story. So I started making animations using MS Paint for a while on YouTube. And at the time, I was obsessed with dinosaurs. I was around 8 at the time. So I used to create these videos about dinosaurs fighting each other and which dinosaur would end up the best. And it was like a big, long, continuous series that lasted for about 2 years. But it really picked off on YouTube and I got 20 million views. And then I got the AdSense then from Google at that time. And then I remember my mom coming into me after school and there was a letter in the post from Google for a 20-euro check for the ad money that I got. And then she was like, what is going on? So I loved making the animations and
You're a
then
professional filmmaker from 8 is what I'm hearing. That's
no,
technically.
no, I don't know the films aren't the greatest quality, but people I think maybe other people my age probably they had internet access to that age were like, oh, this is fun, dinosaurs fighting each other. But then after that, then a friend of mine came over to play at the time, and then I said, oh, do you want to like work on an animation together? And he said, no, like that's boring. And I said, oh, okay. And then he said, but I'd work on a film, like a live action kind of thing, little short thing. And then I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So I used my dad's camcorder and then we recorded a little short film. And then I uploaded that to YouTube. And then that went quite well. And then it was a little skits, like that's the kind of YouTube scene at the time. It was like just funny skits. And then I just really fell in love with making films with the camcorder. I continued making them with my cousins, my brother, sister. And then the Fresh Film Festival, the Youth Film Festival in Limerick, my mum heard about it on the radio and told me about it and said I should submit one of my short films to it. And then at that point, then I was really getting into film. And I lived in the countryside, so I didn't really have anyone to play with or anything. Like it was just me. And also my parents didn't allow me to have any video games. So it was just watching movies because my dad was a bit of a film buff and he had all the DVDs or make films. And that's all I did. Yeah, it was just for every day after school, just continually making films because that's the only thing I could do to have fun, really. But I did really enjoy it. Yeah, submitted to the Fresh and then got to see the film in the cinema. You know, when you're 10 or 11 years old, that's crazy. And then I continued making films throughout my teens until I made the short film Choice. And then that won the Fresh Film Festival in 2017 or 18. Yeah, 2018. I think, yeah. And then that went on a bit of a festival tour. And at that point, I was deciding where I wanted to go to university. And I was going to either do law or environmental science. And then I decided after the Fresh Film Festival Award, you know, I'm going to go for film. And then I can always go back because that was my passion. And then I went to college in Derry, studied cinematic arts in Ulster University. And at that point, then I was working on an independent feature called The Sleep Experiment. which was, I'd say, my actual film school, because I learned a lot from making that. That took around 4 years. It was every summer I'd shoot some of it, and then in loads of different blocks. And that, from learning the whole editing process and post-production process, everything involved, to distribution, it did get picked up eventually by a American distributor, and now it got onto the Amazon and everything. So that was like a really educational journey. But while I was in college, I was tasked with making a 6 minute short film, which was a horror, for a horror module. It was an optional module that I did because I love horror. And I had this idea, which is An Taibhse, and I thought maybe I could squeeze it into a 6 minute short film as a proof of concept. But then I thought, no, there's no way I could get into 6 minutes, maybe 24, 20 minutes. So we made a proof of concept, um, which was around 20 minutes. And we were all so happy with how it turned out that we all decided, we're going to head back here and shoot the actual feature version of the screenplay. And that was in January 2022. And then, yeah, it's just been post production since and getting it all made. And yeah, it was just a group of students that made that were the entire casting crew. Just the my friend group from college.
Stop. Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, so I'm gonna have to just unpack this there. So you at this point, what was your first feature picked up by distribution? Like, was that your kind of confidence to go, okay, I'm gonna do it a bit bigger, or was this just a natural next step?
I don't think it had no, hadn't been picked up. Just it was around that time. It got picked up in October, and we started filming in November. So yeah, actually it was, yeah, but it was just at that time. But I'd really kind of given up on the sleep experiment. That point, I just spent so long on it trying to get it out, and I was very naive and often about it at the beginning. But then, it didn't really, nothing really came from it at the time. But then it did, once it did get the North American distribution, it did get into a few festivals, and I got a chance to go to LA it played in an LA horror film festival. So that it was a great experience. Like I'd say it was like my film school for learning the whole process from pre-production to distribution.
That's amazing. And in terms, like, even in terms of like that longer form narrative storytelling. Okay, so when this idea popped into your head that it's like it's a period piece, it's like so tense, it's so visual, it's like mostly a two-hander. You've like,
Yeah.
other kind of periphery moments around it, but like, yeah, so that the idea popped into your head. So then to get it on paper, to get it into a script, what's that stage then? Like, are you already kind of like prepping for directing it as you're writing it, or are they two different phases?
Yeah, no, it was all I knew. Look, we had a quick turnaround because the module we had to submit the film in November, which was so in November 2021. And then I started writing the script around August. So that was the short film. But I already had the idea and what would happen in the story planned out. So it was actually during lockdown, and the story is inspired by a true story of a family member of mine. And whenever we were in lockdown and everyone was trapped in their homes, the ending of the film, the like what it really is about, that was on my mind. And I saw Mulholland Drive, by David Lynch, and that kind of gave me the confidence to actually make a film like this that is quite experimental, and what you see is not always what is actually happening. And that was brewing on my mind. And then there's a great book I read called The Anatomy of Storytelling, by John Truby. And that goes into like the two main elements for screenplay. You have to have your premise, like a solid premise, and then a theme that will actually resonate with audiences. And I thought that it had a strong theme about like overcoming abuse and that there's always hope. And then in terms of a premise, I'd always been fascinated by the Great Famine. And whenever I was 11, I wrote a feature length screenplay about the famine. And I was just obsessed with the famine then. And I used to like go to the museums and read all the books on it. I don't know, I was in part of history that I was really fascinated in. And yeah, that was kind of the first actual writing I did was a script about the famine. So I had a lot of the research and the books in my room. And then I just thought the more I researched it after that, a lot of the a lot of what happened after the famine and the devastation it caused to Ireland and the long-term negative effects of like the intergenerational trauma from that point, those themes match with the themes I wanted to explore in the story. And then I thought with that setting and having the characters trapped in a house that they're forced to be there, or else they will have no money, no food, no shelter. That it's their death that they have to work in this house and they're trapped, and Moira can't escape. She has to be with her father in order to survive. All all those elements came together, and that's when I thought, yeah, no, I can combine that premise, that setting, the themes I want to explore all into one.
Like, was that just the natural kind of setting for that story, or was that something that you were passionate about?
Yeah, no. So I went to Scolengus Bun School in Drogheda, and I grew up like speaking Irish, and then I moved up the north, to County Down, whenever I was about 13. But and I stopped speaking Irish because I was fluent. I got to do all my exams as soon as I got in, just to get them over and done with. Because I was fluent, they didn't want me to lose any Irish, so I didn't have any Irish classes after that, and I started to lose it. But I would go to the Gaeltacht in the summer, and really did enjoy speaking the language. And I there for to have it in Irish, there was two reasons. I wanted to keep the to make something in the language, keep it alive, keep work. Like I think it's great to see films in the Irish language, and then also to keep it immersive and authentic to the time period. And having it in the Irish language, you really are immersed into that world at that time. You're really seeing how people spoke, and I thought, and that was, it was a combination of all that to keep it in the Irish language. So from the get go, yeah, we were always knew it was going to be in Irish.
That's like it's kind of beautiful and it's so truthful. And again, like then on top of that, there's all these like beautiful technical elements. I just also want to come back to you when you're writing, and I think the message underneath this, without, and we'll have to be careful what we like what we say without ruining anything, but like the message underneath this is quite like important. It's like a
Mhm.
very relevant, unfortunate theme that exists. I mean, and there's a lot that's there from the get-go. I mean, horror is always like a metaphor for like something that's pressing on us. In terms of being connected to your work, do you like you find your theme before you get into your characters? Do you let your characters find the theme? Do you like if it's something that's that tense or emotional, do you have to take a step back from it? Do you find it cathartic? Or do you kind of find it stressful and you need a break? Do you know, like it's such an interesting process.
Yeah, it was quite cathartic to write about it, and it was a really intense process because in terms like if I go back to the start, I write in a structured way. Like it's all about the structure at first. I know what themes I have at the beginning from like in my head, like thinking what is this actually going to explore? Write those themes then, and then like the moral dilemmas in the actual story, and trying to keep it true to the time period. Like religion is another like moral dilemma where both characters are opposing sides of what they believe, and that's one of them. And then having all these themes and moral dilemmas, so the characters are always in conflict with each other, even if it's really subtle. I think that's important to build it all out at the beginning, and then it was structuring it, where it's going to start, where it's going to end. I knew where it was going to end, and then how to get there. So that was just a lot of like going through structure books and picking out the elements that I liked, and then also playing with the structure. So because a lot of the audience is obviously used to certain structure, this happened, this happens, this happens subconsciously. So then when you do play around with that, you can subvert the audience's expectations. Um, and then I knew the characters, but then yeah, like from just writing who the characters are. And the very last thing then is actually the screenplay. So everything was pre-planned beforehand, and then so like I knew exactly where it would start, where it would end, what who the characters were, and then I put it all down onto the actual screenplay. So yeah, I know it's not a conventional way to write, as I just put it down a blank page and go, but I'd structured it all out thoroughly and planned it all. And that meant that I could cut scenes out and experiment with scenes and then realize, oh, that's not going to work because I need to get to this point. Yeah, so that's kind of how
Yeah.
I planned it.
And in terms of like that emotional weight and having that sort of like be something truthful and then like to get it there in the moment while you're writing it, and then I presume you have to get like find it on set then that's a different it's like a different kettle of fish, but we'll just stay for the writing there. Do you like that? Like does you were like is it cathartic afterwards? Is it a bit stressful? Do you get in the headspace or do you take a full step back as you're doing it and look at it very coldly?
Um, yeah, I it look, the ending, I knew it was coming, and it's really um a difficult kind of ending even to write. So I kept it quite I kept that to the very last. The last thing I ever wrote was the actual ending, and it was all the foreshadowing building up to that point. 'Cause good thing is with this story, I knew how it would end, and it was just getting to that point. And then once I got to the ending, the script was really, really brief. It was like a few lines, like, you know, I don't want to spoil the line, but it was like maybe two paragraphs max, that entire ending. And I think that kind of helped because I worked with Tom and Liv uh previously, and I would have lots of conversations with them, and we'd do lots of rehearsals for this. So we were able to actually talk through the story and what it meant a lot in prep, so that that's the yeah, it was all I was all prepped through like conversation, not so much in the screenplay, but it was more so once we were on set and filming, and then we had the first cut and how impactful it was. And then when we were working on the score, and it does like leave you with hope, I hope. Like I hope it leaves you hope. And that yeah, it was at that point then I realized, yeah, it works. It was free. It was the last note in that score at the end and that final shot that I was like, yeah, no, it works. And yeah, I myself and the composer, we all teared up once we watched the final shot, and then it cut to black, and then they're like, yeah, I think we've got it.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so let's go into the section. So you've your script on the page. You have like did you did like it's crass asking, but like did you get money? What was the next stage? We were like, okay, so now we have to shoot it. Now we have to get a location. Now we have to cast it. Like talk to me about that process of it going from that white sheet to into production.
Yeah, so l- everyone had been cast before the script was finished. I just I'd worked with Tom on multiple projects, short films and features, and well, on Civic Experiment. And then I said to him, like, would you be interested in this role? And I pitched him the idea, and he said yes. And then Liv was in my class in university, studying filmmaking as well, and she also acted. So I said, so she actually came to me and said, "Oh, this horror module, do you have any roles?" And I was like, "Actually, do you have a role?"
That's probably the first time that's ever worked for an actor. Now you're like, do you have anything? Yes.
I was like, "Actually, funny you say that. I actually do have something." And then we met up for a coffee, and then I pitched it to her. And but the great thing is, we're all like living within a 5 minute walk from each other in Derry at the like university accommodation. So it was like ambi. And then the my friend group who I live with in university, I just said, pitch it to them, said, "Do you want to help out as crew?" And they all said, "Yeah." So then I had the entire crew sort of like really her and cast. And I'd worked with Tony before in the same experiment, who plays the land steward. And he was like, "Yeah, sure." And then so when it came to the actual budget, we had no money and everybody uh, chipped in. So Liv got her own costumes. She made them from scratch. She works in costume now. For she worked on the How to Train Your Dragon set, so she just made her own costume. Tom made his own costume. Tony made his, and then
I,
the only thing I
I'm gonna do a thing here, and I never do this, but I was like, this is so mind blowing. If anyone is like passively listening to this, go look at the trailer and then come back and listen to this again if you haven't seen the visuals of it, because it's amazing. So like
thank you.
I'm blown away by that. That's so funny that it's like such a grassroots,
Yeah, no, no,
so
it was.
polished. Like,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it was like that, and then I had a GH5S camera, Linux one. It's only like I know it's a lot of money, but compared to other cinema cameras, it's quite cheap. It's like 1,500 if you want to get it. And it's uh, I'd had that camera from lockdown, which was a funny story because whenever everything went into lockdown, the football odds are all off e-games. And a friend of mine texted me and said, "Hey, the football odds are all off." I'd never gambled before, but he's like, "They're wrong. You can win money 90% of the time." And I put a fiver in, and then I finished after 12 hours. I had 4,000, and it then they fixed it. But I just wished if I put 50 in, it would have been 40,000. That's all I think of. But anyway,
you did
I
well.
don't, I don't gamble. It was the first time. That's why I put a fiver in. I was like, oh, but anyway, that money I got from that, I used to buy that GH5S, and then Ross had his own. He's also the co-DOP. He had his own camera, the Lumix 29. But these cameras are micro four third sensors, so the sensor's only a little bit bigger than an iPhone. They're not professional cinema cameras, and we had to use those lenses, like that camera, and like these really cheap lenses from Amazon to shoot it. And um, in terms of then the budget, I was working on commercial gigs over lockdown time, and I had around 3,000 in savings.
Cool. And
And
what were you doing in commercials? What was your
so I was working doing like it's basically like a social. I was doing commercials, ran stuff for this company who sold like ready-made meals, and then I did this kind of like online social media show with them, where like they like busted trolls anyway. Like it was all these like random little gigs, and yeah, like a few other things like restaurants, that kind of thing. It was just whatever I could find, sending emails. And so I had 3,000 in savings, and I used that as the budget for the film. And that went towards the accommodation and the food. And then about 200 quid on candles, because there's a lot of candles in it. And then our university had some lights, but so we took three lights from them, one two Kino lights to create the fire or the flame candlelight effects, and then one light was like an aperture light to create the moonlight effect. And then that was all we had. Yeah.
So I wish I had known that before I watched it, because I would have watched it very differently and been trying to spot all this. But maybe it's good that I didn't, that I was like watching
Yeah.
story because I did not like it's so polished when you watch
Oh,
it.
thank you.
And it's
Thank you.
so well put together and the colors, the palette is so powerful. Like the period set is so nice. It's like it really sells it. You get that feeling of isolate. Like I mean, you're chopping wood, you're doing all this like this all this like intense beats where you're yeah, like out completely in that landscape and alienated in that space. So that's like it's just that's mind-blowingly amazingly ambitious. Like I'm so rooting for this now. This is
Oh,
like
thank you. Thank you.
that is such an achievement in itself. So that yeah, so then okay, so everyone kind of like really rallied together to get this across the line. And then in terms of like how long was that shoot and when did it take? Like did people kind of like was it set around times that worked for people and the location specifically as well? Because that's incredible.
Yeah, so the short film proof of concept, that was a 3-day shoot, and we just worked like crazy. Like it was from sunrise to like midnight, and then sleep for like I'd maybe sleep for like 3 hours and then get up. And at that point, I just broke my jaw in Portugal, and I was on so much painkillers, and then this big metal brace around my uh, which was made it even more painful in the cold. But that was great because I broke my jaw, I got an extension on the film, and then I used that to my advantage to make the feature. So that worked out great. And then we went back to the second block. We still used the footage from the short film in the film, the first one. And then in the second block, we went down on January 4th and we shot for I think 10 days. And then everyone had to go back to university. So everyone, because the university was starting again. So then everyone went back home. But then I stayed with Liv and Tom Stafford, the sound recordist, and then we just did all the audio. And then we went back again in March and then we shot for another 4 days. And then we went back down in April for another 4 days. But that time it was only sound that we recorded because we didn't have time to get sound on every single shot. So once I had a rough cut of the film, we all went down and had the iPad with the film like on it, and we recorded every single line again on location. So instead of an ADR studio, you're actually getting the reverb from the actual room that it's actually meant to be in. And then we recorded every single footstep, every single breath, every single door creak from the entire film. So just 4 days of just sound. And then because of that, then I had so much control in post production because I could just raise any element I wanted. So yeah, and yeah, majority of the film's audio is just recreated after the fact from that 4-day recording session. Um, so yeah, I'm trying to remember the question. Yeah, no, it was yeah that was kind of the length of film, and then we went back again in November of 2022, but that was because it was a really windy day, and my friend Cahill and I were like, oh, it's really windy, let's go shoot the trees blowing because it wasn't really windy anytime we shot. So then we could get all that like cutaway footage of like the exteriors when it's really windy. And then we got that shot that's in the trailer of the house at night, and then it cuts to daytime. So we just set the tripod up, recorded the video, went to sleep, got up early, and then recorded again. So then we had the night to day in the same area. We were just hoping that the tripod wouldn't fall over, or else we wouldn't have that matching shot.
That is just like some level of work and tenacity. And so before we get to the festival run, we're actually it all paid off and you screened at some of the most exciting events in like that you possibly could have got. But tell me then about putting all this together in the edit.
Yeah, that was yeah. It was like, to be fair, I was used to it because whenever I was writing the script after the short film, proof of concept, I had the idea for the feature and a rough draft, but I was like, I need to get this to the best level possible because we're actually going to do this here. I had 2 months to polish it, and for those 2 months, I just didn't leave my university room. And then at Christmas, everyone went home, and I just stayed up, and I would just write and write and write and write and write. And I came home on Christmas Eve, left then on the day after Christmas Day, and then I missed New Year's. Just stayed there writing, prepping for it. So then whenever we finished filming, it was the same process of just sitting in that room and editing all the time. Yeah, it would just be just wake up, edit, and then go back to sleep, wake up, edit, go back to sleep. And that it didn't matter what time it was, there was no structure. I could wake up at like 4 p.m. and then go to sleep at like 8 a.m. It was just nothing but edit, edit, edit. And I was neglecting my university work completely just to focus on this. But I don't know, I was just obsessed with getting it finished. And then we just kept working on that for until maybe over summer. Then I kind of relaxed a bit because I was like, this is not healthy. And I just graduated, and I got a job then working as a shadow producer on Northern Lights, deadpan production,
Right.
and that was really good. I learned, and then during that time, I was editing in the evening, and
Yeah.
then um, I just moved to Dublin at that point, which was cool. I moved there with my friend who also worked in the production, and he also worked on An Taibhse. But anyway, I got this is where I kind of started to pick up that, or like, it was about 2 hours long the edit at that point, and it was just hard to kind of cut it together. And the sound design took forever because you have to sim everything up, because it's not like clapperboard. You're just manually creating it, and it was just so long.
At this stage, who's seen this? Like, is this stage like everyone is kind of like maybe one or two people have looked at rushes, but then you've just been kind of locked? Like, are people like going, will this ever come out? Like, or have you
Yeah,
been showing people little things to go, oh, what can I do at any point? Like, what's your process there?
yeah. No, I was showing like my family and some clips to my friends, and the reaction I got from my friends was great. I sat them all down in my house and I played it. And then one of my friends, Patrick, he's quite harsh with his feedback. Like he's honest, not harsh, honest. So like even with like other films I made, he's been quite an honest critic. And then so I kind of showed him and two of my other friends, and whenever it ended, there was just silence for like 45 seconds, and I was like, oh God, like are they just like awkwardly sitting there in silence? And then like they don't want to say bad because I thought I didn't know what people thought. And then he turned around and he was like, "Whoa, this is quite good, like really, like yeah, like full of praise." And then I was like, "Oh, okay, maybe this is," or I don't know, maybe he was just being nice then, just saw not to work about it. But I at that point then I was like, "Okay, maybe this will go somewhere." And I showed a few people, and they were like, "Yeah, it has all this potential." But at this point, it wasn't color graded. There was no music. It was like really rough. But a friend of mine did catering for one of Jim Sheridan's films, and Jim was stuck outside the Chinese on a day where there was no taxis in the rain, and then this guy gave him a lift home, and then told him about me, and said you should chat with this guy, and then like to return the favor for me giving you a lift home, and then 6 months later, I got a call to say Jim's in town. He said he'd meet you for some food. And then I was like, okay. And I was so nervous. So I got to sit down. I got there like really early, and I kept like moving around the restaurant looking for the best table to sit on. But that was the quietest one, so I could actually talk to him properly. And then it was like he's so lovely, Jim, and he was asking me like what I'm up to, and then told him about this film I made on Taibhse. And then I said, "Would you watch it?" And he said, "Yeah, sure." And then I said, "Like, if I book out a cinema screen, will you go watch it?" So I knew like if I sent a link, or when you send links to people, people never really find the time. And then he said, "Yeah." So I got the Brooks Hotel screening room downstairs, and he came the next week, and he watched it. And afterwards, he was like, he said it was genius. And I was like, what? And he was full of praise. And then we went for dinner afterwards. And Liv was there, Tom was there from the cast, and Creagh and Cahill, who's the AD, were all there. We went out for food, and he like talked about the project and the film for like 2 hours, properly dissecting it. And he like it was just the whole process was so surreal. He's like a hero of mine. And then he I asked him then would he come on board as an executive producer to help. I had just chanced it, and then he said yeah. And then he gave me notes on what to. Well, he said here are some notes first, and he said get down to 90 minutes, change this scene, maybe reshoot that. And so I spent the next 6 months working on those changes, and then I sent it to him then, and then he agreed to come on board as executive producer, which was great. And then at that point, then the edit was locked, 92 minutes, and then it was bringing it into the color grade, and then I had to learn how to color grade from scratch. Not like I knew how to color grade on Final Cut Pro, but I wanted to do it properly this time, so I learned how to use DaVinci Resolve, and then there was a few visual effects shots, so using Fusion, and then that whole process then was just getting it to a standard that looked really, really professional, like the color palettes, everything about it. So that was another huge, like a year-long process, basically, of getting it to that level. So
I mean, it's probably going to be a testament to you in the future where you'll understand so much more and be like, no, but I do it this way, actually. Do you know, like, and come up with all your own fixes. Like, you'd be so hungry to get out in the world, especially now you've such momentum.
yeah, but I submitted it to festivals, major ones around Ireland and internationally back in 2022 whenever I had the first rough cut, and I was like, great, if it gets in on the rough cut, that'll like spur me on to get it finished for the festival. And I got rejected from the wall, submitted again in 2023, got rejected from the wall. So I wasn't getting into any festivals at
And that's
all.
expensive as well to submit to.
Yeah,
It costs a lot.
yeah. And then, but at that point, then it was, when was it? It was around September 2023. And I really was feeling low about the project. I genuinely thought like it was like up and loads of ups and downs. When Jim, well, the positive praise about the film, I thought, oh, this might go somewhere now. But then I thought after at that point when nothing was happening, there was no momentum, no distribution, like nothing. I thought, okay, maybe he was just being nice to be encouraging for a young filmmaker. It's not actually gonna go anywhere. And I really believed that. And then I thought to myself, it's not actually finished yet though, is it? The music isn't completely finished. The color grade isn't completely finished. The visual effects, sound design, it's not actually locked off. And here's me like hoping it gets in all those festivals. So then from September until I set a deadline, shortest day of the year, December 21st, that date the film will be completed. And I'll submit it to every festival I can and forget about it. And that's it. And I'll move on to the next project because I can't keep working on this for this long. And so then I just worked like crazy to get it finished. And then I just submitted it to all the festivals, like Galway, Newport, all those. And then I just forgot about it and then was working on the next project. And then randomly, I got an email from Galway Film saying, "Are you available for a quick call?" And I was like, "They're gonna ring me to say, do you stop submitting the film every year? Like, it's not gonna get in." I was thinking that.
That's what your
And
fees are
then,
for.
yeah, and then I rang, and then I spoke with Maeve, and she's like, yeah, we're gonna screen on Taibhse. I was like, what? And then I was in shock though because she said we're gonna screen on Taibhse, and I just went okay because I was expecting her to say like, sorry, I didn't get in, and then I just went okay, and I just froze and I couldn't because I was like, oh my God, it's gonna be in Galway. It's like a dream of mine. And then the next day I got the confirmation that it was going to be in Fright Fest and playing like their main screen, the 800-seater one. And I was like, what? In like Odeon. And then the day after that, I got an email from Newport Beach saying that I got in. So it all happened like really quick. And I like all like in the same like 3 days. And
Yeah.
then everything kind of just changed then. It was at that point, like when nothing's really happening, you do get quite low. And I was thinking, is this really is the film industry really worth it? Like
Yeah.
with all the anxiety you have, and then you see other people like some of my friends are like doctors and lawyers and working, and they're getting their good salaries, good jobs, good security, stability. I was like, is it really? Like I love it, but like can you actually survive on this? Like it's really difficult. And then yeah, whenever that kind of happened, then it was just everything just tunes and then just getting it ready, DCPs, all the press, and just yeah, trying to get all that going.
How did it feel then getting to go to these events and like and in quick succession? So like what was your timeline? Which was your premiere?
So Galway, we played there first, and that sold out, which was great. And like I did not expect anyone to see it, honestly. And what I do kind of regret now, looking back, I know it's only like last year, but I didn't really enjoy myself that much because I was so stressed. I was that it would work. Would people go see it? Would people like it? You know, what are the letterbox reviews going to be? Like it was just I was putting myself under so much stress. And then it played in Galway, and then we went down to the cinema before it played just to say like, do you mind turning it up when the film's playing? And then we went up to the box office, and then we're like, oh, just here to talk about it, like we're about An Taibhse. They're like, oh, it's sold out. There's no tickets left. And I was like, oh no, no, we're not here to get tickets. But and I was like, wait, what? And I was like, what do you mean it's sold out? And I was like, they're like, yeah, no, it's sold out this morning. There's people like trying to like coming here looking for tickets and they can't get any. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then that was like a then I was really scared. 'Cause I was like, oh my God, I have to speak in front of all these people and do G&As and everything. Yeah, it was terrifying. Um, but got a great reaction from the audience, and a few of my friends came down, and like my girlfriend was down there with her friend and the family, and that made it really special. Like everything in between the screening was great. The actual screening was hell because I was so scared watching it.
And was she delighted because she actually got to see then when it's finished? Like, was it like, this is what you look like? I've forgotten.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's yeah, 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 exactly. So yeah, no, because like, but yeah, no, my girlfriend, that she's great because when in the whole prep to everything, all this madness going on, it's like, look, I'm sorry, I have to like now that the iron's hot, I have to try. So like a lot of our dates would be just us working together in a cafe, unfortunately. But the one good thing was it did play in Iceland, and we got to go. It was her birthday at the time when it was playing in Iceland. We went out there early, and we got to celebrate her birthday, and we enjoyed ourselves for a few days, and then we went to the festival. And at that point, then because we done a few festivals, um, I realized I just gotta enjoy myself here. Like, if someone's coughing or if someone goes on their phone during the film, like I can't like make that like ruin my entire night, or like the sound's not loud enough or something like that would be like, oh no, the whole thing's ruined. But yeah, no, that yeah, it got to the point halfway through the festival run where I was like, you know, I'm just gonna enjoy myself. And then we played in the Irish Film Centre and in London, and about like an hour into the film, the projector cut out, and then we got it back up, and it was streaming from a laptop, and then it came up on the top right by 5 minutes before it ended, low battery power. But but thank God at that point I was just having fun. I was like, look, you know what? It's playing here. I'm in London. I'm having a good time. But if that happened early on, I would have just like killed me. Yeah, no, it was about enjoying the actual festivals, talking to other filmmakers, talking to the audience, hearing people connect to it, and also because it's in the Irish language, a lot of people said to me that it was the first time hearing it, the Irish language, and that was really great to see. And then like they're asking about like is Irish Gaelic, and like wait, why is there only the first like horror film in the Irish language, but why is there no other films made in the Irish language, and or like horror films, and asking about the Irish language. And then it was great to hear people from all over the world actually speak and talk about the Irish language and connect with it. And then they all said it made it really immersive. It wasn't a barrier at all. That like they're really glad it's in the Irish language. So everything there, like the whole festival run, by the second half I was really, really enjoying it. First half, I was yeah, it was a nightmare. I got distressed with it all. I just couldn't deal with it.
And you must be so relieved because I suppose you just didn't quite get to do that with your first feature, even though it is being watched and it is out there. That like now, and do you feel as well like your second film being out there, there was more eyes on your original feature, or have you kind of like put that to bed? Did you know, like if you're like, okay, now it's the next one?
Yeah, no, it's all entirely, I kind of, I don't think many people knew, but the first one were like, look, it's grand. Like, yeah, as I said, that was my film school where I learned I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes on that, and that helped me with An Taibhse to make it, to shoot it so seamlessly and quick and for like so little money.
Tell me now about so it's going to be in cinemas. It's going on general release, which is really exciting. Talk to me now about like going to the Gen Pop. So it's not even like the people kind of seeking out films and film festival. This is like going to that broader audience and going to those remote places. Do you have like a tour planned? Do you have like a lineup of industry people to chat to?
Uh, Yeah, so the films are in cinemas now. It's gonna be nationwide, which is crazy. And we weren't I wasn't expecting that many. Like the idea of fun in cinema is great, but would the cinemas actually want to play the film? Like that's another thing. But from the audience reaction and the critics, like all the critics seem to like the film, which is quite like crazy because the last one I did they weren't a fan of. But and then the cinemas are giving great reviews and they're putting it in more screens. So as of today, March 12th, it's in around 20 cinemas to open with, but with six more to come and then more. So it could even be bigger. So I'm kind of, we're just like, so whenever the Lab Bible post went up the trailer, that kind of blew up and I got like, it's like on 55,000 likes at the moment. I
Yeah.
think that the demand word of mouth is kind of spreading around, and then more cinemas now are kind of putting in, which is all a bit surreal. So yeah, no, I was talking to both Tom and Liv, the two leads, about it, and I was like, kind of hasn't sunk in yet that it's going to the cinemas, and they were like, no, and I was like, yeah, it just doesn't feel right. What I mean, like obviously we've done all the work, but from it being just like I started off with a 6 minute short film for a university project to now like going to cinemas nationwide and like the cinemas actually wanting to put it in more and more screens now with the word of mouth as it travels. It just yeah, it doesn't really yeah, it's hard to
To
comprehend
fathom
on.
it. No, I swear to God. But I
Yeah.
mean, if you talk about supporting Irish film and like the little Irish film line cut, that's incredible. What did your like lecturers, you know, like when they got their final project in, they like, what the hell is this? How is this so polished? Like, were they surprised? Did they know you'd been working on it the whole time?
Yeah, but I look in university I was not a great student to be fair. I didn't really submit in time where I was like because I don't know. I was working like because I broke my jaw. I really milked that to like having extensions on my projects so I could work on entire show of that, which they weren't a fan of. So, but then when I did submit it, my lecturer, yeah, she was quite yeah, she was impressed, yeah. So, but
Like, oh, that's why it's taken so long. Oh, instead,
yeah,
you know, like the usual suspects film. You know, it's like two kids on a bench chatting about life, you know, like which is
yeah,
very
yeah.
fun, but it's like this is just next level.
I know. Yeah, no, yeah, yeah. I suppose that they're probably not used to that kind of submissions for modules, but yeah, no, it was yeah, the interesting responses. Yeah.
They're like, what the I can picture them then where they're like, what? And then in terms of like what was next then? So this has sort of like it's been about a year going around festivals, like just under a year, sort of really making waves of festivals, doing very, very well. Um, in that meantime, you got Screen Ireland development funding to develop your next script. Did you
Yeah.
get like in terms of, did you get that before this had kind of hit festivals? Was that something that was sort of already being, and was that based on your first feature, sort of like the tones in that? Or did you submit, say, this is a writing sample?
Yeah, no, it was just a submitting a writing sample, and it's a coming of age romance, completely different genre. Like, and it's based off my graduation film, where I made a short film called Differel, set on the Aran Islands, and it I shot that like 4 days before submission, and then I had to like edit it while doing the dissertation last minute. It was like, I really wasn't college wasn't my main priority at that time. It was An Taibhse. Um, and then with that proof of concept short, I developed it into like a treatment for a feature. And then I submitted that to Screen Ireland, and I got thankfully they seemed to like it. And then I got to that development, screenplay development.
So you're prepping now. So you're raising funds for this. Where are you in terms of screenplay for your next one? That's so exciting to have your next one on the slate ready to go.
Yeah, so we've got the next stage of development. Um, so hopefully we'll shoot it soon. I am working with Metropolitan Films on the screenplay, or on the project. So yeah, David, Tina, Connor, all been great, really supportive of the of the project so far. So I suppose it's just working away on it now and just continuing to develop it, and then hopefully get it shot someday. So yeah, that's kind of where
And
I'm
I
at with
know
it
you
now.
have another horror as well in the bank as well for your next one. So horror fans won't be disappointed. I
Yeah,
saw
no, yeah, no, well, I'd love to make a horror movie based on the Loch Ness Monster. I think that would be quite a cool, like an
yeah.
actual realistic, gritty version of the Loch Ness Monster. So I have developed that at the moment, like a deck treatment. So yeah, there's a few things. Like I'd love to make a film on Irish mythology and do like an origin story on Finn McCool, Sam of Knowledge, that kind of thing. Yeah, there's so many different ideas, but look, it's one step at a time.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah,
well, holy crap, we're looking forward to seeing what you do next. And in the meantime, everyone needs to go out and see this on the big screen. It's hitting, God, there'll be so many screenings to choose from. There's definitely one nearby. So definitely support this.
yeah, thanks a million.
Thank you so much. You can like, rate, share, and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, or even better, subscribe to our newsletter over on filmireland.ie.